A couple of Russian thugs come into a man's home and quietly take him away from his wife. The man is brought before a Russian mob boss, Oleg Milankov, who demands that the man opens the safe in the room they're standing in. The safe is opened, but it's empty. Milankov calls his employer and tells him there is nothing in the safe, but he will leave him something else. Milankov shoots the man dead. Bryan Mills buys a giant panda bear for his daughter Kim's birthday. At home, Kim holds up a pregnancy test and looks at it worriedly. Bryan shows up with the panda, followed moments later by Kim's boyfriend Jamie. Kim comments that Bryan is predictable, while Jamie says Kim is as well, since she follows the same routine and goes to the convenience store to get the exact same orange smoothie drink from the exact same position. Bryan departs and takes the panda with him, even though Kim admits to feeling a bit bad about not wanting it. After he leaves, Bryan talks to his ex-wife Lenore on the phone about Kim. He invites her over to dinner, but she declines. Lenny surprises Bryan by showing up at his place while he's making dinner. She tells him that she's not very happy at home with her husband Stuart. She makes a pass at Bryan by kissing him. However, he knows this would be inappropriate and he politely turns down Lenny's advances. During a game of golf with his friends, Bryan gets a call from Kim and she invites him to meet with her at a diner. She prepares to tell him about her pregnancy when they see a bratty child making a fuss at another table. Kim gets nervous and tells Bryan she wants his advice on whether or not she should get a puppy. Bryan is visited by Stuart, who thinks that in order for his marriage with Lenny to work, Bryan needs to be out of the picture and that he should stop seeing her socially. Bryan assures Stuart that they're only friends and that there is nothing going on between them. Bryan gets a text from Lenny asking him to meet her at his apartment for some bagels. Bryan gets the bagels and returns to find a knife on the floor. He goes in the bedroom and sees Lenore lying dead on the bed with her throat slashes. As Bryan recoils in horror, two policemen burst in with guns pointed at Bryan. They prepare to handcuff him when Bryan ends up cuffing both of them. He jumps out the window as he hears more cops coming. Chased through the streets, Bryan escapes into a river basin. He calls Kim from a payphone, revealing her mother's murder and his framing. Kim, at Lenny's home, breaks down. Inspector Dotzler investigates, questioning Stuart and Lenny's home. Stuart returns, identifies Lenny's body, and reveals Bryan's past. Bryan sneaks into the morgue, collects a hair sample, and learns about Lenny's last moments from the gas station footage. He discovers a masked man abducting her into a van. One of the men has a star-like tattoo on his hand. Two detectives stop at the same gas station and learn that Bryan was there. They find him in the security room and arrest him. Bryan goes in calmly. The detectives inform Dotzler of their arrest of Bryan, but since Dotzler has just followed up on Bryan's past, he knows that Bryan is setting them up. In the back seat of the police cruiser, Bryan carefully uncuffs himself and knocks out one cop while forcing the other to keep driving. The detectives chase Bryan as he takes control of the cruiser. This leads them through a garage where the cruiser ends up falling down an elevator shaft. The car explodes, but Bryan escapes. Dotzler talks to Bryan on the phone and tells him to stand down since everyone is going to be looking for him. Bryan responds, "Good luck." Bryan visits his friend Sam, to whom he gave the sample to, and also informs him of what happened to Lenore. Sam stands by Bryan and is willing to help him. He tells Sam he wants to go to the funeral. Lenore's funeral takes place, with everyone going to console Kim and Stuart. Sam signals Kim with his lapel camera, urging her to follow her routine. At Stuart's place, she spots too many guards and heads to a convenience store. A note on her smoothie instructs her to drink it immediately. Feeling sick at school, she's rescued by Bryan in the bathroom. They embrace, and Bryan gives her a counter serum. Kim confesses her pregnancy. Bryan vows to find the real culprits, but detectives interrupt as Bryan escapes before they arrive. On the run, Russian thugs pursue him, leading to a fiery car crash. Bryan gets a man to let him drive his car to follow the goons to the liquor store. Bryan beats the thugs all around the store until they are all knocked out, save for one last man, the man with the tattoo on his hand. Bryan takes him down and orders him to tell him who sent him. The man says he would rather die than tell, so he grabs Bryan's gun, puts it in his mouth, and pulls the trigger. Bryan locates Stuart, who retreated to a beach house. He knows Stuart sent the thugs, and Bryan takes Stuart to another area and waterboards him for information. Stuart was involved in a bad business deal with Oleg Malenkov, and Lenny unfortunately became a victim of his when Stuart failed to return the man his money. He was merely counting on Bryan to find out about the situation and to utilize his killing skills to make the problem disappear. Stuart also tells Bryan that Malenkov is a trained killer that joined the army and special forces, and that he is just as good at killing as Bryan. Together with Kim, Sam, and other friends of Bryan's, they have Stuart set up a meeting with Malenkov. Malenkov arranges for them to meet at a building downtown. Bryan storms through the building, eliminating Malenkov's goons. In a final confrontation, Bryan shoots Malenkov, who reveals they were both played by Stuart. Leaving Malenkov to die, Bryan receives a message from Kim about a specific location. Stuart, aware of the situation, ambushes them, shooting Sam and kidnapping Kim. Bryan, aware of Kim's peril, races to the airport, pursued by the cops. At the airport, Stuart prepares to escape on his private plane with Kim. Bryan, in a stolen car, intercepts the plane on the runway, crashing through the wheels and thwarting Stuart's escape. Stuart emerges from the plane with Kim at gunpoint. She manages to escape him, leaving him to Bryan. Bryan puts together just how Stuart tried to get away with Lenore's murder while beating the man senseless. Before Bryan can kill Stuart, they hear the police sirens getting closer. Stuart says Bryan can't kill him now, and when Bryan tries to prove him wrong, he looks over to Kim, who shakes her head and urges him not to. Bryan figures that Stuart will probably get a good lawyer and be out of jail in a few years, and that's when Bryan will get him. He knocks Stuart out and leaves him to get arrested. Bryan meets with Dotzler in his office. Dotzler says he knew Bryan was innocent because he found the bagels in his apartment, and they were still warm. By that logic, he couldn't have bought bagels and then committed murder. They part ways, and Dotzler closes Bryan's files. Bryan joins Kim and Jamie on the pier. He supports the two of them as they expect their child. Kim says that if it's a girl, they will name her after Lenore. Bryan agrees with that choice. The movie ends here. Thanks for watching.